p.m. on September 17th, 2019. I'll go slowly so
Thank you.
Councilwoman Elder can get on her microphone and get that set up. While she's doing that, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody for joining us. This wonderful fall, I guess, summer, fall, still summer. We'll do the roll call.
Mayor Gray.
Present.
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor Elder.
Here.
Councilor Rohr.
Here.
Councilor Wolbert.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Present.
Councilor Paul.
Here. I would entertain a motion. Thank you all for being here. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. And I did have one suggestion, and we can do this as part of the executive session, but I would ask that item 1 be moved to the end of the executive session rather than at the beginning. So we can incorporate that now into the motion.
I move that we approve the agenda as written with the exception of moving M1 to M5, and the other 4 switching up.
Second. There's a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Consent calendar. We have 3 items on our consent calendar tonight. The minutes of September 3rd, the minutes of public accommodations. Thank you. It's great when I have people sitting on both sides. We do allocate a couple minutes. In my effort to try to get through this agenda fairly quickly, I inadvertently left that out. We do have a couple minutes that we allocated at the beginning of the meeting for anyone who would like to comment on an item that is not on our agenda this evening. Former Councilwoman Toll.
Thank you. Yesterday we had the first meeting of the short-term rental work group. And we have a great group, by the way. The selection of those committee members really represents a good cross-section of the stakeholders in this community. So I was very pleased with the meeting. But I would like you to consider placing a moratorium on short-term rentals based on the fact that this meeting is convened to get more input from citizens about what they would like to see. With regard to moving forward with the ordinance and perhaps amending the existing ordinance. So I think it makes sense that there be a moratorium placed before we consider a lot more short-term rentals based on the old ordinance. So thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. We typically don't comment, as you know, but we did hear you. And I think what we should do is have a discussion at a work session about whether we would like to entertain it. To mention it. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Would you mind just introducing yourself?
I'm Blake Allen with the Allen Realty here in Memphis. It's here in Springs. Anyhow, I have coincidentally a short-term rental issue. Of course, it's not the same in the neighborhoods where they're having trouble with Crystal Hills and the rest. This is one that's been around for a long time here in town, for 8 years, and rather than, because I know you have a limited time, I wrote something and I'll just read it so that it's explanatory as quickly as I can, rather than sit here and pontificate, which would be my other tendency. My clients, Michael Clark and Denise Murray, who are both here, have owned and operated a short-term rental at 113 Deer Path since 2011 without any complaint or incidents. They have followed all the rules. No one came to complain about their application, unlike all the others at last week's planning commission meeting. The only neighbor who attended did supported the use. My clients wish to sell their property. I'm skipping a little to shorten it. My clients wish to sell their property, but their conditional approval predated the new policy that the conditional use runs with the land. I think city attorney is probably familiar with this a little. The planning staff recognized this as essentially an administrative issue and recommends approval as they did to the commission. Rather than act, in my opinion, one member convinced the others to postpone to await the city administrator's legal opinion. The city attorney spoke with staff and indicated that a process needs to be put in place to allow this transition because of the differing laws about it and different conditional use. This issue is one of timing, recognizing the urgency. The planning commission has set a special meeting for tomorrow night to address this one issue. If the planning commission does not accept the minor conditional use permit and instead postpones again, the sale currently under contract will fail. This will not allow Denise to acquire her next property, which will take away another sale in our school district. Also, the buyer will not be able to purchase this property and may not buy another one owner-occupied property home here in Manitou, where they'll be living. This is well over $1 million in lost transactions. On top of the revenue lost, already in the process, going through the process. Just so you understand the process, the buyer must also make a business application and accept all the city's conditions for the conditional use. The protection sought by planning will all be in place. So everything we're doing for the new conditional uses, the new business license, they're gonna have to comply with everything. So anyhow, I would ask the council and advise the planning commission to accept the conditional use so that the transaction can proceed with the same condition imposed on the buyers on everyone else. I understand there's been council's intention that the existing short-term rentals, especially those without complaint or incident, be allowed to continue. If this application is denied and the new property owner is forced to reapply, then the 500-foot rule could result in disallowing the conditional use in favor of one or more that came into use later. Basically, the new conditional uses would be better or more equal than the older ones. So, just to shorten the rest, it's a place you can park off street, you can walk to downtown.
Mr. Allen, if you could condense that, and the reason I suggest that is because when you mentioned that you're asking council to take action, we are not in a position to do that.
I understand that. Yeah, I'm just here to say.
And so we appreciate your comments on that, but I think it's probably better taken up with our city attorney who would advise planning commission, or a city administrator who would advise the planning commission before or during the meeting tomorrow. Probably not something that we're gonna weigh in on between now and tomorrow.
I understand. I just wanted to come here and tell you so that you knew. And you know, the issue is we have some people with one set of rights and somebody now with a new set of rights, and I don't think that was really the intention. I think that would be nice if the people with the old kind of permit were people with the new kind of permit. And that's whether it runs with ownership or runs with the land.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
More than familiar, I'm sure.
Appreciate your pointing that out.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Anybody else have any comments on items not on the agenda?
I'll make a quick comment.
Okay, if you would like to come on up and introduce yourself,
I
please.
sure will.
Thank you.
Michael Clark is my name, and it's the same vacation rental thing. That meeting last week before the planning commission was very shocking to me. I was really surprised to see this open bias against short-term rentals. I mean, clearly, if you can look at that meeting and see the biases showing through, it probably doesn't help my chances for tomorrow night's meeting. But what I can see what's happening is that this is gonna be bound up legally. If the commission has their say, their way, and they did. Again, I was shocked at their open disdain and bias against short-term rentals.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, appreciate your observations. Anybody else? Okay, now we will move on to the consent calendar, which has 3 items: the September 3rd minutes, the September 6th minutes, and the September 10th minutes. We entertain a motion concerning the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar as shown.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item G1, we have a proclamation number 0619, Arts Month. Mr. Dick.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, thank you so much for the privilege of coming before you again to request a proclamation in support of Arts Month. My name is Andy Vick. I am the Executive Director of the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak Region. We are the local arts agency that serves El Paso and Teller counties. And National Arts and Humanities Month happens during the month of October. It happens every year since the mid-'80s, and about 6 years ago, our region decided to adopt our own local Arts Month initiative. The whole idea is to encourage the community to get out and enjoy arts and culture and participate and engage in at least one new cultural experience during the month of October. So we, as the Cultural Office, create a landing page on our Peak Radar website, peakradar.com/artsmonth. This is what it looks like. This is sort of where you get all your information for Arts Month. And it is set up in such a way that we use local photography and have a local artist tweak it a bit and create our artwork, and then we promote this throughout the region, actually starting last week and running through the end of October. We ourselves as an organization produce 2 events, and I will extend an invitation to you all as well as those behind me. First is the Artini. This is happening next Friday, the 27th, at the Mining Exchange Hotel in downtown Colorado Springs. It is a free community event for those 21 and older. If trends continue, we'll have about 1,000 people there, and it is a showcase of local arts and talent. And from 5:30 to 8:30, you just show up, enjoy for as long or as little as you like, and really take advantage of all the great art that's happening throughout our community. The Manitou Paints folks, 5 of them, will be painting at the Artini as a kickoff and preview to their event that's happening shortly thereafter. So we're excited to have a number of Manitou artists as well participating. The second event is the Business and Arts Lunch, happens October 10th this year. This is where we celebrate unique and inspiring intersections between arts and business. It's a ticketed event at the at the Antlers Hotel. I would extend the same invitation to you to join us there as well. We are putting out all kinds of Arts Month marketing, print, radio, TV, banners, all kinds of stuff, just to get the word out, and it seems to be already catching good traction. We also depend on our local community members and organizations to carry the Arts Month banner and to include the logo on their communications, and we get great participation every year. We really appreciate that. This is also a very important part of Arts Month. I have the pleasure and privilege of going to 2 counties and 6 local municipalities to request the proclamation, and I'll ask you to take a photo, which we will then social media up a bit. But it's an important way to make sure that our elected leaders understand, as I know you do, how important arts and culture are to the quality of life in our community. Arts Month has been going on for 6 years, as I said. We're trending in wonderful directions in terms of not only the number of interactions on the website, but also the number of events, sheer events. Last year we had over 300 cultural events happening during the month of October throughout the region. It's pretty impressive. Anyone who tells you there's not a lot going on here does not know what they're speaking of. Why does all this matter? Why should you care? The arts have a huge economic impact. The nonprofit arts and cultural sector in the Pikes Peak region generates $153.3 million of economic impact. I believe that arts and culture is important for businesses. If you want to attract and retain talent, especially young talent, you need a vibrant creative scene to do that, to keep them here so that they can be quality employees for our businesses. And for those of us who live in the region already, we know that arts has a powerful impact on education, and specifically at the elementary level, but throughout one's educational lifetime. Arts really enriches us, gives us happiness and joy, and it also brings us together as a community. And so I think arts and culture, again, as you know well, is very important, not only to Manitou Springs, but to the entire region. One bit of information I will share with you is that we have, for the Pikes Peak region, a 2010-2020 cultural plan. Next year is 2020, and that plan will be ending. So the Cultural Office is working with the B. Vredenberg Foundation to put together our 2020-2030 cultural plan. Natalie Johnson is going to be representing your community as well as some other folks on that committee, and we look forward to getting that started after the new year, and we will release the new plan in Arts Month next year. So keep an eye out for that, and know that your cultural office is working on the big picture to create the next cultural plan for our region. I will remind you of a couple key dates. The Artini on Friday, September 27th, 5:30 to 8:30. Business and Arts Lunch on the 10th, lunch event. peakradar.com/artsmonth is where you can find everything. If you're a hashtagger, hashtag Arts October. And most importantly, I would invite you to get out and have a cultural experience with your family or friends during the month of October and really celebrate Arts Month with us. Before we take a photo, I would like to invite my partner in crime and your local resident and superstar, Natalie Johnson, to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Andy. No, I just really, obviously, Andy does a fantastic job sort of explaining the impact of the arts in the region. I just wanted to mention that, Saturday, September 28th, so the day after Artini, we'll be having our Manitou Paints Plein Air event throughout Manitou Springs. It's also Brewfest at the Heritage Center. And then the following Saturday, we will have Tactile at the Manitou Art Center. So Textiles West takes over the Art Center and turns it into all things textile related, including live animals, which is kind of fun. And then we also have some Art Pop, which is sort of these art experiences happening all throughout the region, but we will have 3 in Manitou Springs, so stay tuned for dates and information about that. And then of course, as creative as we are, the coffin races, right? It's hard to beat that. So just a reminder that there's a lot happening in Manitou Springs throughout October, so it's not hard to have that unique experience right there. So thank you.
Awesome. So that is my song and dance. Whoops. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, thank you again for your time.
Any questions of Mr. Vick or Ms. Johnson? If not, would entertain a motion concerning proclamation of October as Arts Month in the Pikes Peak region. We need a motion, and then if somebody wants to read it, that's fine.
I move that we approve proclamation number 0619, Arts Month.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I have a slight discrepancy here. The proclamation I have in front of me says 0719.
0719 should be Creek Week.
0719 is Arts Month.
The proclamation itself says 0719, the packet says 0619.
Actually, they both say, this printed copy, they both say 0719.
We will make that correction in the record.
All right.
For which way?
The arts should be 06.
Okay, I won't write on it. I'll trust you can either do another one, or we can go with this one, and
We can
we'll
sign-
correct the number.
Sign that for formality and we'll move forward.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion concerning the Arts Month proclamation? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Also, just wanted to make one point. A number of years ago, we were separate in terms of our art, Colorado Springs art. It's great to see the working together. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. And if I
it
may
really
just
does make a difference.
briefly respond to that, we have this wonderful creative corridor, downtown Old Colorado City, Manitou Springs. And a couple of years ago, just as you said, we all got on the same page. We're all collaborating for great First Fridays, and the shuttle bus connects it all, and it's working out wonderfully.
You'll hear this if you stay. The theme, one of the themes tonight is working together, we can get more done. So thank you for working together, very much appreciate it.
Can we do a quick photo?
Let's do a quick photo.
Oh,
I'm sorry?
Would you like the proclamation read?
I don't think we need to do that unless you want to.
We're not
Okay.
Everybody
Right.
can hear it.
Oh,
Sure. I think we're gonna read it.
Proclamation, October is Arts Month in the Pikes Peak region. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for more than 2 decades. Whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind. Whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American, including those of us living in the Pikes Peak region. Whereas the arts and humanities play a unique role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country. Whereas the nonprofit arts industry also strengthens our national economy by generating $166.3 billion in total economic activity annually, which is $153 million of annual economic impact in the Pikes Peak region, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 4.6 million jobs across the nation, over 5,000 jobs locally. Now therefore, we, the Manitou Springs City Council, do hereby proclaim October as Arts Month in Colorado's Pikes Peak region, and call upon our citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in Manitou Springs, and to specifically encourage the greater participation by those said citizens in taking action for the arts and humanities in their own community. Dated the 17th day of September 2019.
Wonderful, thank you. That's a great suggestion, since there are maybe some folks watching us at home. They have the opportunity to hear the proclamation.
Appreciate it. Is it still on?
Yep, I just did.
Great. How do you want to do that?
If you just wanna stand so that you can get everybody in the picture, I don't know, if somebody wants to hold that there. There you go. If you could, as long as you can see everybody, we're good.
Take a couple.
Yes?
It flashed, so that's a good sign. Thank you. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Alright. We'll call item G2, proclamation number 0719. Creek Week, Mr. Small.
Thank you, Mayor Gray, and thank you, council. And it's particularly inspiring to be here with the proclamation for the arts, because as we know, the arts inspire the human spirit and the environment inspires the arts. So our activity is about the environment. Manitou Springs has been a very important part of Creek Week since its inception in 2014. You participated every year, you provided proclamation and support, and your citizens worked very hard and supported it. In 2014, Creek Week started out as an initiative of our Citizen Advisory Group, which is exactly that, a group of citizens who advise our district board. As Councilmember Fortuna knows from her service on our board, they're a very important group to us. The voice of the citizens are always important. And their voice says we need to do something to interact with our citizens to promote healthy waters in our watershed, Mountain Creek watershed. So they put this program together led by Allison Flute, who the district has just hired. We doubled our staff this year. Not many governments can say we doubled our staff in a year, but we did. We now have 2 people serving the district. Allison and a group of 5 or 6 people got together and formed this, went out and involved the citizens and got 625 people to participate. Last year, it had grown to 2,791 participants. This year, we expected to exceed 3,000 participants. Through that 5-year period, we have collected 84 tons of rubbish and debris from our streams and parks and streets and wherever it might exist. We don't limit our activities to just streams. Whatever a team wants to do to get together and collect rubbish and debris, that actually prevents it from eventually getting into our streams. We've had all 10 governmental entities in the Fountain Creek watershed participate in this every year, including Woodland Park, who's outside the district, but they're a participant. It spread to the Greenhorn Valley. Colorado City, Bryan was a participant. Last year it spread to Trinidad. It has been done in Otero County. Creek Week is now the largest citizen initiative cleanup in the state of Colorado, and it's received national recognition for the activities. So we think that's pretty good accomplishment by our citizens, not necessarily by the district. We facilitate this activity, but it's really our citizens who do it and participate and make the difference. Manitou Springs citizens have done that over the years. 496 residents of Manitou Springs have participated. Particularly impressive is your elementary school that does this every year, and it is really encouraging to see these young people get out and learn about clean streams and healthy environments and participate in this program. This year, it will be September 28th to October 6th. We encourage anyone who wants to participate to go to the website, Fountain Creek Week, that's one spring, fountancreekweek.com. There's a way to register a team. There's a way to get instructions on how to participate. The kickoff will be at the Fountain Creek Nature Center this year on September 28th. That's the beginning. And we'll provide all of the materials, the bags, the safety vests, the gripper tools to pick up the debris with, everything that we collect and haul away, the rubbish and debris that's collected. If there are things that are too big to pick up, if the teams tell us where it is, eventually we'll get someone out to pick it up, like refrigerators. It's pretty hard for folks to pick up a refrigerator to carry it away, but we have done that. So thank you for your participation. Thank you citizens for their participation. And we're really proud of all the work that people in Manitou Springs have done in this activity. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Jason, are you gonna come up and talk about our October 5th Manitou Springs?
I was just gonna add a few comments to
I thought you might.
Larry real quick.
Come on up and introduce yourself.
My name is Mike Essam. I'm the city stormwater manager. We obviously support Creek Week. I thank Larry for coming out today and kicking it off. I did bring a few promo items down, some little pet waste bags. I set them out on the table out there, so if anyone, nice little ones you can hook on your dog's collar. So if anyone needs one, feel free to grab a few out there. There's a few sets of grabbers I left out too. Please use them, put them to use. But our event is on October 5th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're just gonna meet up down at Memorial Park here, just to the south of the incline shuttle. And Public Works staff, a few of us will be around to support and haul off trash and organize volunteers and whatnot. So I encourage you all to come out. And so one other thing we're doing too, Natalie has spearheaded a storm drain art project to kind of tie everything together here. Colorado Springs is doing it. I believe she's secured funding and everything, so I just want to encourage anyone to support that mission, to get some art downtown in the storm drains and bring awareness to ultimately what flows to Fountain Creek there. So, and any additional information, or if you want extra, tools or pet waste bags, feel free to contact the stormwater division. So, thanks.
Any questions? I did have one comment, and the comment I'd like to make is concerning the aquatic habitat. I had an occasion to talk with the state Park and Wildlife, the aquatic resource, aquatic biologist today, and he was out a couple months ago and done a count of our fish population here in Manitou Springs, and I'm very, very sorry to report that it has gone down significantly. Wasn't quite sure why. Obviously, we've had a number of flood events. We have a lot of more sediment down there, but the point is that we used to have a really, really good aquatic habitat here. We spent about $400,000 and some odd on our creek restoration project back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, before the floods and prior to floods. So I'm wondering if your organization might help. Corey Noble is the gentleman I spoke to. He said he'd be willing and interested in participating in a conversation to see what, if anything, we might be able to do. And I don't know if that's exactly in the realm of the group, but perhaps there might be something that we can pull the right people together and have a good conversation about how do we improve our aquatic habitat.
Okay, sure, be glad to. A few years ago, a couple of professors from CSU Buffalo did a research study on Fountain Creek and the aquatic habitat in Fountain Creek, starting at Woodland Park and going all the way to the Arkansas River. They were particularly looking for mercury in fish, but as part of that, they did do what I call fish census. They estimated the populations of fish and the transition of the fish downstream and where particularly the trout would end up and what the potential for trout fishing would be on Fountain Creek below the confluence with Monument Creek. So I still am in touch with them. They have a lot of data on that. The population that they found was very good, particularly the trout, a very good population in Green Mountain Falls and all the way through Manitou Springs. So I don't know why there would be a decline in that. That was before the Walden Canyon fire. I don't know if the runoff from the the burn scar has had any impact on that. Potentially it could. We did a study of water quality in Mountain Creek all the way from Woodland Park to Pinion, to look at any impact that the burn scar had. We did that in 2014 to see if there were any contaminants, increasing contaminants as a result of the burn. We saw slight changes in certain constituents in that study, but no real alarming change. So what we saw didn't indicate there would have been any impact on the aquatic habitats.
And there wasn't after that? He did a count a couple of years ago, and it was much better than it is today. So something's happened in the last couple of years, and we're just trying to figure out what that is, and more importantly, how we get it back.
Okay, I'll look into that if you can give me the
Absolutely.
the name of the individual. I'll get in touch with him. I'll see if I can set up a meeting with the professors who did that, and we'll explore.
I mentioned during the Travel Limited is very interested. I met with them a couple months ago. They were participants, heavy participants, a number of years ago when we did the restoration work, so they're still able to help.
Okay, we have contacts with Travel Limited, have been stakeholders in our watershed restoration master planning projects, so we work with them pretty regularly too.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's kind of cool to be able to walk through town and fish your way through town. It's catch and release, all catch and release.
Yes.
Alright. Anybody like to read the proclamation and entertain a motion concerning it?
Proclamation number 0719, Creek Week 2019, September 28th to October 6th, 2019. Whereas the city of Manitou is fortunate to have extensive, beautiful, and diverse natural resources, including Fountain Creek. And whereas the Fountain Creek watershed, including Fountain Creek-related wetlands, existing trails, and recreational facilities, is a unique watershed that is an important resource and asset to the residents and visitors of Manitou Springs and the Pikes Peak region. And whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed Flood Control and Greenway District is partnering with the City of Colorado Springs Utilities, El Paso County, Pueblo County, the cities of Manitou Springs, Fountain, and towns of Monument and Green Mountain Falls, along with numerous community organizations to coordinate the 6th annual Creek Week cleanup, which will encourage the protection, restoration, and maintenance of the Fountain Creek watershed. And whereas this 9-day litter cleanup effort kicks off in Fountain Creek Regional Park on September 28th and runs through October 6th, 2019 throughout the watershed. And whereas Creek Week programs and activities are designed to raise awareness about the littering issues within our watershed, to encourage organizations and individuals to collect litter and debris, and make Fountain Creek and the watershed cleaner and safer. And whereas businesses, churches, schools, nonprofits, neighborhood associations, youth groups, service clubs, and individuals are encouraged to form a creek crew to clean up at a Creek Week project site. And whereas Creek Week litter removal activities will reduce pollution in our creeks and clogs in our waterways that can lead to flooding, provide for safer drinking water supply, and enhance wildlife habitat and property values. Now therefore, the City of Manitou Springs, the City Council of City of Manitou Springs, Colorado, hereby proclaims September 28th through October 6th, 2019, Creek Week in El Paso County, and encourages our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in Creek Week activities done the 17th day of September 2019 at Colorado, well, I should say Manitou Springs, Colorado. Signed, Mayor Kendra.
Wonderful. Would you like to incorporate that into a motion?
Certainly. I move we approve proclamation number 0719, Creek Week 2019.
There's a motion, a second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Sure. Needs to be the photo.
We do the photo?
Yeah, it's good.
He's better photographer.
Do you wanna hold that? Actually, one on each side would be good. There you go.
Alright, ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, and then I flip it.
Alright. Thank much. Actually, if you give that to great. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we'll call item G3, resolution number 1919, resolution establishing a commitment of a sustainable environment and an ambitious response to climate change for the city of Manitou Springs. Mr. Schultz, would you like to start off? We have Ms. Alexander joining us as well, so come on up. Tell us what we need to know about this resolution.
Yes.
Actually, Allie's going to tell us about the next resolution.
Oh, you.
Feel free to jump in at any point.
Oh, me.
I forgot that we have two separate resolutions.
Again, my name is Aaron Schultz. Thank you for taking the time. This is a project, so I guess I'll read the staff report. The environmental work group has been
You don't need to read the whole thing.
has been working on this for quite a while with a number of community partners. Notably the Manitou Springs Pollinator Project, Pikes Peak Permaculture, Green Cities Coalition, the school district, and other regional partners. This is a long-standing goal of the community to become more resilient and more sustainable, and this resolution puts those goals into action. And that's something that council has asked for, is more than just a resolution. Council wanted action, and so that's what this resolution does. It gives us a path forward. We are well on our way to meeting some of these goals. 1 through 6, we are working to tackle in 2020 with work starting now. And our next resolution will talk about the tree planting program. But one of those pieces is a local food assessment, which is currently funded and our planning department will be taking on. And we have lots of information about the sustainability of our city facilities, and that recently received a grant for a parking facilities master plan to continue that effort. So again, this represents some of the goals of the community to become a leader in the region on sustainability and fighting the negative impacts of climate change.
Great. Do you want to talk a little bit about, while you're up there, about what's going to happen tomorrow and in October?
Sure. So we do have several events coming up, the first of which will be tomorrow. At 11 a.m. we'll be holding a press conference outlining some of these environmental goals and inviting the region to follow our lead. Manitou Springs has always been a leader in these sorts of topics, and we want to continue to do so. We've invited the news media to come out and again report what we're doing to the rest of the community. On October 12th, we are again having a climate action event, and that will be first and foremost a tree planting, where we will plant 1 tree for each year of Manitou Springs existence, so 147 trees, and then that will be followed by a potluck celebration of our climate action, where we'll discuss more of those goals, and groups will have the opportunity to present the project that they are working on and an opportunity to approach volunteers. So again, continuing the theme of climate action throughout the rest of the year.
And door prizes.
And there will be door prizes.
Good ones.
Good ones, including potentially some rain barrels.
Yeah, nice door prizes.
Nice door prizes. So I would extend an invitation to all of council and everyone here to join us on October 12th for a climate action event, including Hiawatha Gardens cleanup, tree planting, and of course, our favorite, a community potluck.
Questions for Mr. Schultz? Probably a good time to recognize some folks in the audience that have really made a difference here. I hope I don't miss anybody. First, Karina McCready, who I think is one of the prime authors. Authors is neutral, right? Of the resolution, along with former Councilwoman Toll, and let's see, Melody Doherty has been with the Pollinator Project, has been critical in pushing this forward. Elizabeth Domingue from Superintendent of District 14. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Nope, but that was close. Domain.
Domain.
You got it.
Okay.
Close.
Let's see, who am I missing here? Conrad from Green Cities Coalition, also the Sustainability Director and Parks and Community College. Allie, we'll talk about in a moment here on the tree resolution, but she's been critical in that aspect of it. and we'll recognize a whole bunch of other people tomorrow, of course, as well. So thank you. You guys have done a lot of heavy lifting over the last 18 months. Just as a little background, so about 18 months ago, City Council appointed an environmental work group, and was told, and that's why Rob helped coordinate the group and facilitate that, and this resolution is really the product, I think, of that work. And all they needed was just a little bit of help getting it to the top of the hill and to roll over, and I think we're there. So thank you for all of your hard work in getting the rock to the top of the hill. Appreciate it. So, questions?
Not a question, but we might also recognize Aaron for stepping up and being the program manager to carry this to actualization, so thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And this really is a thank you to City Council for recognizing the importance of this and for allocating funds to be able to do something. So very much appreciate that. And Aaron has been great to work with so far in the short time that he's been here, so thank you. Yes, ma'am, did you want to say something?
No, I'm ready to
Okay.
make
Your name?
motion.
Absolutely.
I move council pass resolution number 1919, a resolution establishing the commitment to have this sustainable environment and an ambitious response to climate change for the city of Manatee Springs.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? The only discussion I've had is that we will correct a couple typos that apparently have been snuck in there, in case anybody, hopefully nobody noticed it. Hopefully we will correct a typo or two that's been discovered recently.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, of course.
First I want to say yippee. But also I want to thank Ken Dre, because I think what this is needed is someone in the mayor position to go, okay, let's run with it. And if it hadn't been for Ken, we'd probably still be scrambling around doing other things. So I really appreciate that.
All I did was just get the rock just a little bit further up the hill. You guys pushed it a long way up the hill, so we appreciate all of that. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yippee.
If not, please vote. Motion passes 6-1. All right, we will call item 4, resolution number 2019. Resolution establishing the Manatee Springs tree planting program to celebrate our city birthday and create a sustainable community. Ms. McAlexander.
Yeah. So I'm Allie McAlexander, the arborist of Public Works, and so kind of to go off of what Aaron already started, the tree planting resolution is just an aspect of the sustainability resolution. So Mayor Dure approached me with the idea of trying to come up with this tree planting program with the idea of planting 147 trees to represent Manitou's birthday for being 147 years old. And pretty much after that meeting, we kind of started to run with the game plan and started making plans pretty quickly. Myself, Councilwoman Elder, Melody Dougherty, excuse me, and Mary Ellen Montgomery, the city gardener as well. We all chose the planting locations for this tree planting resolution as well. We chose 12 planting locations around the city, 2 of which we're still waiting for final approval on, which is the school districts. The rest, we've met with some of the other groups and boards, and we're working with them as well to coordinate and get the okay to move forward with those remaining planting locations. On that note too, we tried to come up with a good variety of tree species that we were wanting to plant for this resolution. Unfortunately, with how quickly we were moving and how fast this kind of came about, we didn't get as much of a variety of trees that we were hoping to plant for this fall, but next year for this tree planting program, having more time to really put into it and focus on it, we'll definitely be able to improve it quite a bit for the following year, 2020. I guess on that note as well, I wanted to mention that a big part of this program as well is we'll make the city a Tree City USA. So with this tree planting program, we'll actually get national recognition through the Tree City USA that shows that we are a community that is actually working towards creating a healthy and more sustainable environment here in Manatee Springs. So on those, the toes of this big project, we actually are going to be able to get national recognition for this as well. So, yes, any questions?
Any questions?
I have a question regarding, once the planting is done, what's gonna be the watering program? I know so many of these are right on the asphalt,
Yes.
interface, et cetera.
So on that, I guess first I'd like to mention that we know that some of these planting locations aren't ideal planting locations. We chose them as kind of a spot that could be potential nursery stock. So planting these trees just simply to get them in the ground, that in hopes that in another year to maybe 3 years, we could actually transplant them and move them to a more suitable location. So we know that they might not look like they're in the most ideal locations, but we are hoping that with time we'll be able to move some of them around. On the note of watering, the ones that are in the park, we're not as concerned about getting them the water because they'll be able to get the water that's coming from the parks. But Public Services knows that it's going to mostly be our responsibility to water some of these locations since they are, public works land and a lot of these areas don't actually have irrigation. We're going to do our best to try to keep a good schedule with watering, but also being cognizant of the fact that we don't have as much staff as we would ideally like to have, so we expect losses in this plan as well.
And the kinds of trees we're going to discuss there.
Oh yeah, most of what we're going to be planting are bristlecone pines, blue spruce. We got a few black walnuts and I believe Melody as well as Becky are going to actually donate some of their own trees. So the additional species that we'll have, we don't know what those couple will be. I think as of now possibly a ginkgo and maybe a cryptolfa as additional. But the trees that we did pick, again, it's a minimal variety, but that was kind of due to the fact that we were moving so quickly. Normally you would order these things about 6 months in advance, and since we were trying to move so quickly, we knew we were going to have a lack in species diversity. So these trees will do better actually with kind of that lack of water. The bristlecone pines, the blue spruce are more xeric, but that first year to 2 years, we definitely need to be try to stay on top of the watering if we can, because it's important to keep them alive those first couple of years before they are more mature that we can transplant them.
How are you going to keep track of where they are?
Oh, well, the idea is that after they get planted, we'll be able to GPS them and then add that data to TreeView online.
So if you haven't seen, there is an online mapping of Manitou Springs trees. It's called Colorado Tree View, and apparently we can add this data.
Yep.
Keep track of it.
Yep, we can update it ourselves.
Great. Any questions or other comments? One other comment I would make, and that is, Elizabeth, you want to come up and say something? Yeah.
We are,
Just a quick introduction.
absolutely, Elizabeth Domingue, and I'm the superintendent for Manitou Springs School District, the best district in the world. And we are going to continue to partner with the tree planting. The final approval is only because of making sure that we have the irrigation to support where the trees are planted. And Danny Geek and Allie are going to meet to finalize those plans pretty shortly. So, and Barack, one of our teachers, he has a program during the day, and that's connected to the Flying Pig Farm. And they are also committed to continuing the tree planting and the educational side of students being engaged in this program. Tomorrow, our students will be involved in the tree planting ceremony along with Barack, and then also again on the 12th. So we're looking forward to continuing the partnership now and for many years to come. So thank you.
Well, thank you for you've only been here a short time, but you're doing a lot. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So how many of these do we think we're going to transplant? Because the maps that you provided are really great, but some of the locations seem odd to me.
Yeah.
It feels better knowing that you might use them somewhere else later. So are many of these temporary homes?
Not necessarily. Like some of the ones in the park, we would like for those to be long-term so that we would have those future shade trees. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to give you a specific number of what's really going to be able to be transplanted, just because we don't know how many will die. Maybe some of the ones that do die will actually want to replace in that exact location in the following year. I would probably guesstimate that out of all of them, maybe 10 or 15% of them we know will want to transplant at a later date.
Thank you.
In terms of the map, which is actually the maps that are in our packet, were not precise locations? And
Yes,
we
so those are
never
kind
just-
of more generic. I had another coworker help me create the maps, so I had just hand drawn them, and then she just, based off of my hand drawing, pinned them in on the maps that she was creating. So, I mean, they're pretty close proximity for sure, definitely within, a good couple feet for sure. But the ones in the parks, like Memorial Park, for example, some of those ones along the creek side there, they kind of almost look like they're more towards the middle of the park, and they're definitely closer to the edge of the creek. And prior to this event as well, I will be placing flags for every planting location. So working with the chamber and Commonweal as well, we're going to wander through all of the parks and double check those locations that they don't interfere with the events.
So I was gonna say, we met today with the Chamber and Commonweal and representatives from Park and Rec, and had this understanding that a couple days before this,
Yes.
that Ally would go out with them, and if there were spots where they said, no, this isn't gonna work with us,
We'll say fine.
we're not gonna be planting it.
And I have one more question.
Yeah.
And you guys probably have chosen your trees to not have this problem that roots can break up sidewalk. And
Yeah,
can break up
definitely a
concrete.
possible issue.
So a lot of these feel like they're just right there on the edge, and I just wanna make sure we're not creating,
More of an issue.
yeah.
Yeah, and again, obviously as time moves forward, we won't really be able to recognize those issues until they get a little bit bigger or we start moving them around. And so, like the ones that you're talking about along El Paso, if I had to bet, a good portion of those will probably die due to traffic and the events that we would have. But at the same time, we're hoping we can get several of them to stay long-term, again, as future shade trees. And we know there's the possibility that they could, interrupt the irrigation lines or the sidewalk or pavement, but at the same time, that's kind of just a side effect of trying to put more trees in the park as well, because we know we can't place them in the center of the park. Did that kind of answer your question?
It does. There are other cities who are tree cities and have undertaken this type of effort. Do they have some good things for us to watch out for? In
Yeah,
this regard?
you mean like just kind of general references of?
Like 10 years after they've done it, what they have done differently? I mean, is there that kind of data out there? That's
Yeah, but it's not so much through the Arbor Day Foundation. That kind of information is specifically through the different cities that have been recognized as tree cities. So there is some of that data, and it does touch on the things that you're already bringing up, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Ally, thank you for all of your help. Really been great. Appreciate that. Would entertain a motion concerning resolution 2019.
I move council approve resolution number 2019, a resolution establishing a Manitou Springs tree planting program to celebrate our city birthday and create a sustainable community.
Is there a second?
Second.
So the motion is second. Any further discussion?
Can I say it easy?
You can. If not, please
It's
vote.
good stuff.
Motion passes unanimously.
Yay, Becky gets her trees.
And I will say Becky has been working really, really hard for trees and lots of other things in our environment, so these are really some positive steps. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we'll call in 5. Set payment plan for police officers. Karina, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All of you, everybody that has been part of this effort. It's been great. It's not over, it's just beginning. Chief?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Joe Breister, Chief of Police. Pursuant to our last meeting, I made some additions to the policy, and I sent that back out to you in a blue font. Just for your reference, those changes are contained on page 3, where I carried it out to the 100th percentile of the compensation study. And then I added the paragraph, Councilman Aurora, that's what you were looking for. And then, Mr. Mayor, you had asked about the fact that this would not entitle them to merit or pay for performance. And that's annotated right underneath the pay chart. The only other thing is I did work out what that pay would be at the various percentiles. That was questioned. I didn't know if you wanted that. Wasn't appropriate to put in the policy, seeing that could change. But I do have those numbers if you were curious as to what the salary was for the respective percentiles from 25, 37, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100.
Any questions for the chief?
Chief Reister, a question, if I may. I missed the working session that built up to this proposal, and just viewing it at 20,000 feet, I wanted to see if the sense I have on it is correct, which is by moving to a step program, I'm going to draw an analogy. This is very much like GSA schedules for government employees, where basically metrics are established based on length and grade, based on experience, based on credentials achieved, and so forth. It deterministically set the pay. Am I correct in that analogy?
Correct. Yes, the progression would have to be, would be obtained through longevity, but there would have to be a satisfactory performance evaluation yearly that's obtained to continue to move up in the pay rate.
Okay. And I do understand why this would be suggested for our community, because basically neighboring municipalities are basically all on the system. Am I correct in that inference?
Correct. Virtually every law enforcement agency in the state is on a step process or a step program for incremental step increases as a police officer.
Got it. And then this is a general question, not to be answered now, but to be thought about as we will continue to be refining our payroll system, because we radically changed it in 2017, which is just an open question, not to be discussed now, but to put it in front of us. How do we contain this approach within this very small workforce we have to other departments that could arguably make the same case, which is an interesting contrast to our merit pay system, which we again introduced in 2017. It was not a consideration, frankly, that we were introduced to or exposed ourselves to when we were doing that work. Again, not for now, but perhaps Denise, as we go forward and we continue to look at how we're managing our merit pay system, just a consideration to take into mind.
And just part of that, I won't address it because it was a lengthy conversation, but Denise and Roy and I have already had those conversations and reasons, so hopefully when that comes to fruition, we'll be 1 or 2 steps ahead of you and can maybe answer some of those questions and concerns that could arise.
Super, thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? If not, we'd entertain a motion concerning the step payment plan for police officers.
Make a motion. I'll make that motion to approve step payment plan for police officers.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, is there any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, one other, with that, what could I look at as far as an effective date for this to go into effect?
That's a really good question.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Got it in the budget.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to say you're free me, but unfortunately you'll see me pretty much throughout the night, so I'll be here.
And we will look forward to it. All right, call item 6, appointment of police chief. Somebody want to introduce this briefly? Ms. Howell?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just need.
Thank you.
Good evening. We have done negotiations. He has accepted, so we just need approval to move forward with the appointment so that the mayor can sign the offer letter.
So I believe we're needing a motion to appoint Randy Churchill as our police
Brian.
Brian. That's because I just read a note from Randy. On my mind, thank you for Brian Churchill, and to authorize, me to sign the offer letter.
Yes, and he would be starting October 1st.
Thank you. Anybody wanna make such a motion?
I move that we appoint Brian Churchill, police chief.
Do you wanna include the authorization to sign the offer letter?
And authorize you to sign the offer letter.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion, a second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 7, marijuana home delivery discussion. Mr. Parker, are you gonna, we have a memo from you, appreciate that, you don't need to go over it in great detail. I think some folks at council wanted to talk about this topic, and so I think our purpose here tonight is to see whether this is something that we want to move forward with, in accordance with the memo that you had given us, when we prepare an ordinance and so forth. So I think it's really a chance for council to have a discussion about this, hear any input from, I don't know, if there are any representatives from the two?
Yes, Maggie's fine.
Both representatives here, so let's hear some input from these gentlemen, and then perhaps give some direction to our city attorney about how we want to proceed. So, anybody on council want to start us off, and we can then hear some feelings from the two, either owners, managers, or.
Actually, both with Maggie.
Oh,
I'll be
okay,
speaking
well.
on behalf of Maggie. You're stuck with me again.
Councilman Roar.
Mr. Parker, could you summarize what our options are?
Yeah, I'll just give you sort of a 1 minute breakdown. So the new House Bill 19-1234 authorized licensed medical marijuana centers and transporters, and licensed retail marijuana stores and transporters to deliver marijuana products to residential locations. There's a licensing scheme that the state would basically run. The Department of Revenue would basically is working on regulations right now to detail the new statute. And then to do that, though, the local government has to permit those operations within their jurisdiction. So you have the option of allowing licensed retail marijuana delivery, licensed medical marijuana delivery within the city of Manitou Springs. You're also allowed to decide whether or not you want to allow licensed businesses outside of the city to deliver into the city, or limit it just to current licensed businesses in the city. That's pretty much the basics of the regulation.
And if we do nothing?
Not allowed.
Not allowed.
Right.
Okay. Yes, and there's no idea what other things the state's gonna do related to this ordinance.
Well, right now they've given the right now they've given the authority to Department of Revenue to enact regulations to add more details to the licensing scheme, so they can deal with things like what kind of ID is required when you go there, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yes.
I was just wondering what our current rules are, ordinances on home delivery of alcohol and regular pharmaceuticals.
We don't have any regulations on that at all, as far as the city local laws are concerned.
So can a liquor store deliver?
I don't think they're allowed to do that in Colorado.
They can, with
Is
a
that
delivery,
correct?
delivery permit, but those are issued directly by the state.
Okay, great. That's
So
why I
we
was
have
answering
no-
that
we have
question.
no- And I don't know if any of our local stores have that or not.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that in any of our clients, to be honest with you. I think
It's not a real popular
Right,
thing.
right.
And then the second question was other pharmaceuticals from a pharmacy. Correct. Is that right?
Any rules?
Could Walgreens deliver a medication, a prescription to somebody? I think it's a question.
Yeah, I do know that there are medication prescription delivery services, and they actually can even be delivered, I believe, via certain postal services as well. I'm not sure exactly what the limits are on that, but it is permitted to some extent.
Other council questions?
I would be interested in knowing what our representatives.
Yeah, I was just about to ask for that, if you all would like to come up, somebody, and give us your thoughts about whether we should or should not entertain the concept of home delivery.
Good evening, members of the council and mayor. My name is Andy Schober on behalf of Maggie's Farm. Coming in tonight, I think you're gonna hear less from us about a specific recommendation, and I'll get to why in a minute, but these are complex issues. I think the pace at which it's happening with the state makes this even more entertaining because the regulations have not been completed yet on critical issues regarding security like surveillance and others. I think there's a lot of people sitting and watching and waiting right now, Maggie's Farm being one of those, carefully studying this. The decisions that are made affect not only our position in the community, but even the economics of whether this makes sense or what makes sense. I think one of the challenges you face is that the players that are getting into this at the state level are very different than what you've been working with for the last 5 or 10 years. Most of these and the money behind this are from technology companies, the apps that would allow people to order on their phone. That has been done in California. And if you look at the learnings that the state has had here, we've actually gained a lot from some of the missteps in California. And issues like limiting the amount of product that can be in a delivery vehicle. California started at $10,000 in a given vehicle. They since dropped it to $5,000. You might imagine why. Same issues go if you look at the payment mechanisms in the marijuana industry where credit card use is still not allowed. How do you handle a delivery driver with, in our state, potentially having $5,000 worth of product in their van, secured, having $5,000 worth of cash in their hands? I mean, these are issues that if we look at from a security, from a compliance standpoint, dramatically affect the economics. The training and the requirements of the drivers, what does that do to the economics of this? I think also, though, you as a city have issues that may even be more unpleasant. We're seeing nationally towns that do not want retail presence or medical presence because of the image perception of stores saying, wait a minute, delivery might allow us to capture the tax revenue without having the unpleasant effect of stores in town. I mean, we certainly look at what if, hypothetically speaking, Colorado Springs were to say, you know what, we don't want retail stores, but what if we allowed retail delivery in Colorado Springs? And I'm not here saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying as we do our economic analysis, these are some of the factors that we're trying to figure out what makes sense. I mean, truth be told, getting into a business like this is no small financial undertaking. I mean, Maggie serves not only Manitou, but stores across the region here. How many vehicles are we gonna have with the very intense security and controls that go with them? How many personnel? What sort of infrastructure are we gonna have? Do you move to a warehouse model? California, if you look at how they've evolved, it is no longer really occurring from storefronts as much as these delivery vehicles being served out of warehouses. So you go to why pay for a retail storefront if it's not gonna be delivered from there? Again, our models today at Maggie's don't incorporate warehouses into equations like this. We have medical or retail dispensaries. So my point in saying all this isn't to say, hey, we think this is good or bad. I think if you look at the market as a whole, and was it your question about it's happening in groceries? It's happening in food delivery? I mean, has anyone here used a Grubhub or even Uber's getting into it now? I think consumers, particularly younger ones, are looking at it and saying, why do I want to leave my sofa when I could have it brought straight to my door? And candidly, when I voted on this, I asked myself, you know, on a Friday night, would I rather have somebody out driving high rather than sitting at home and doing it? And while I'm not sure I necessarily said I want that in my neighborhood, I can see why people might say that's a better alternative than having somebody drive stoned or drive drunk, to the other question. So I mean, I think there's a rock that's rolling downhill. The question is, under what time frame, given the requirements you have to make decisions, does the city need to move to comply with the state requirements, yet still protect yourself from having consumers or your residents ask questions like, how have you decided to move forward on this if we haven't figured out what the state regulations are for security yet? I'd have a hard time with that personally, not on behalf of Maggie's, with a family of my own in dealing with that. So I guess I'd look at it and say, our intent coming in tonight was to say, we are still watching the situation. We're interested in having a dialogue with you, but beyond what I've said, we don't have a firm position of advocacy, except we want to stay close to the front of this, but are cautious about being out in front of it while there's still things being decided on the back end. Did that help? Any questions that I could answer to clarify?
Any questions?
Yeah, as one note, I know our memo mentioned this, but the medical marijuana delivery permits can begin on January 2nd, 2020, and the retail is actually a year later.
Yep.
So there would be time. You're not required to do anything, obviously, but there would be time for retail in particular.
Well, and frankly, if you look across the state, it's my perception, and I haven't looked at NED numbers lately, but the number of medical permits for cardholders, individuals, is actually dropping. With the price compression that we've all talked about, the economics of medical for many casual medical people, it just doesn't make sense anymore. Why would I do it versus going recreational? So we even look at the economics and say, gosh, if the medical volume today is, this percent of the business, and our retail volume is a much bigger chunk, can you even make medical delivery work as a standalone out there? So again, the economics say if you're gonna get into this and you're gonna invest the money, can it work here? I mean, there are people who are dead set against are dead set against retail happening when it's happening. We still think there's risks that there could be ways people find to defer this whole thing. And again, if you're talking about laying out hundreds of thousands of dollars for personnel, equipment, and everything to be ready, that's a deep-pocketed proposition that some of these tech firms that are venture capital backed, I mean, there's a company in California, if you want to look up the sorts of companies you're dealing with, named EAZE, E-A-Z-E. I believe they've raised to date about $154 million in venture funds to support their business model. You've known Maggie's for quite some time. You've known Emerald Fields for quite some time. Because of the capital regulations in the state of Colorado, we haven't had the access to raise any funds like that out there. So looking at a van or two looks very different for us than when I was in San Francisco a year ago. EAZE was advertising on every side of every bus, on buildings, have marijuana delivered to your town was all over the place. That's a game changer, I think, when people start thinking about what does this mean to their community. And I'm not trying to play boogeyman here when it's terrible, but it's a different set of players than we in Colorado have been used to for the last 5 or 10 years.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Yes, sir.
I didn't raise my hand, but I should have.
That's okay.
My name is Charles
Why
Howell.
don't you come on up to the microphone and introduce yourself, please?
My name is Charles Howell. I'm an attorney here in
What's your last name?
Houghton, H-O-U-G-H-T-O-N. I'm an attorney here in Colorado Springs, Manitou Springs. I've lived in this area for 35 years now, native Coloradoan. I also act as a consultant in the marijuana industry, not only in Colorado, but in California. And I can tell you that the concerns that he raises are exactly correct. The state of California's been battling with it. There's a couple of other things that I'd like to raise for you to consider. One is that the safety of the delivery drivers is something that's always been a concern of mine personally. If you think a pizza driver is a target, wait till you give someone marijuana and money. And their routes are going to be known. I could call in someone and have them ambushed. And there's a lot of things with delivery that are a concern. Whether that acts as a drain or something else on law enforcement is something to consider. The other thing to consider is that if you allow deliveries from outside of the jurisdiction, outside of the city of Manitou Springs, into the city, how do you collect the taxes? Do you get any benefit whatsoever? Those regulations are not firmed up yet in the state of Colorado, and it's been an ongoing battle in the state of California about, how do you decide, do I pay the sales tax where the delivery originated? Do I pay the sales tax where the delivery terminates? And then how do I account for it? How can we prove that everybody's playing according to the rules? And so I agree that I think some of these decisions and things that you're doing There's some open-ended questions that, you know, they're still dealing with in California, and they've been doing deliveries in California for a long time. They just now are getting around to regulating it, and part of it is a state issue, part of it is a local issue. So, some other things to consider.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
All right, yes, Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe Reister, Chief Police. Mr. Houghton and the gentleman from Maggie's Farm pretty much summarized mine, but the one thing I did want to point out was, or a couple things, was yes, the delivery drivers, their safety would be paramount. Domino's Pizza, Pizza Hut deliveries, they used to get ripped off all the time. People would call in a fake order. My biggest concern with them is, as was stated by the gentleman from Maggie's Farm, they, unlike DoorDash or Grubhub, there is no credit card transaction. People are gonna know this is a product for cash delivery. So either it will be lying in wait, waiting to take the product, or it'll be lying in wait to get the cash back. And much like when all this started with medical marijuana and then personal use, there were very strict regulations for the safety and security as far as cameras, security guards, monitors off-site, recording devices off-site. And while there will be a level of security for the car to deliver it, it still gets it away to where once it goes to that door, you really don't know what's gonna happen. I don't think driving impaired will be quite such an issue. They're entitled to an ounce, they get their ounce. If they don't, if they do a half ounce and want a half ounce later, delivery service may be there, but I would be inclined to say that that won't be an issue. Regardless of what you decide, I think the storefront now provides that added security. It makes people come to the store where they can verify an age, they can verify their level of intoxication, whether it be through drugs or alcohol, and there is a safety component for that cash transaction. But regardless of what's done, I think if you decided to go with deliveries, I think we would see an increase in crime. It would draw on that nexus of people who would come in here, maybe they know somebody to order it up and then just rip the driver off. Speaking from 5.5 years of working undercover narcotics, these type of people who do these rips are a lot more violent than the one who may take a pizza from one of Nelson's drivers delivering it. I think we're safe, we're secure with the storefront. I would like to stay that way. And regardless, if you decide that home deliveries can be managed, I'm certainly confident the police department can respond appropriately. I would just encourage you then, please do not allow it to go outside of the city limits or do not allow it to come inside of the city limits. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Council, what's your pleasure? I think really we're here to decide, one, do we want to move forward with some sort of regulation, or do we want to put this off for later consideration, or are we ready to make a decision we don't want it at all? There's probably a spectrum of decisions we might look at. Do you want to jump in on which direction you'd like to suggest we move?
I think we've heard enough to say that it's not stable enough to take a position on. And given that, it's not that we have to say we don't want this permanently, but we just say we're not gonna put it on our agenda until either this council or future council deems it appropriate to bring forward.
Okay, so that, you're suggesting table it for the moment?
Yeah, indefinite table.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Farkas, we have to make a decision.
No, if you don't make a decision, basically it's not allowed in the city. You need to basically permit it for it to be allowed.
Other thoughts?
I would table it, that's what we have to do, but I don't think it should be allowed.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna do,
Table it?
at a minimum table it now.
Okay. Okay.
I'm good with tabling it. I'm glad we had this discussion. I really pushed for this because sometimes I think we just try to push this under the rug and not talk about it, and I don't think that's the way we should do it. So I'm really glad we talked about it. I'm pretty scared about it right now. However, I'm still glad we talked about it, and I would like to table it.
Okay. Sounds like a majority of council would like to table this. We will move forward with a prohibition, so to speak, meaning it's not allowed. And at some point, if either this council or some later council wants to consider it, we have more information than we did before. So appreciate it. It was really helpful information. I don't think we had thought about, of course, because we had a conversation about all of the consequences, both intended and unintended, perhaps on the board. So appreciate all of your input. Thank you. Chief, thank you very much. And Jeff, thank you as well. All right, we are going to recess our city council meeting, and we are going to reconvene as the Manitou Springs Liquor License Authority. And the item on our agenda as the liquor license authority is for.
I'm sorry, you're right, sorry. I was looking at the wrong part of the agenda.
Okay.
Apologies.
Did I get that right?
You're good.
Good. We are going to call item 1 on the liquor license authority, which is the change of location for Orfanos, I don't know if I pronounced that right, LLC DBA Hell's Kitchen Pizza. There it is. And before we get started, Ms. Lippert, would you like to lead us off here, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll change hats and come over here as well.
You're good. Part of the job.
I'm not sure what you're accustomed to getting from your clerk in terms of background information. You do have a lot of that already in your packets, and I don't know the need to read it all to you. But I do want to make note of things that are important to get on the record since this is a hearing. And so I'll just give you a very quick rundown. If you have questions, I can go on also.
Hold on one second. Ms. Parker, should we incorporate this as part of the hearing?
So both my clients do different ways, but I think if you open it now, you get all of our information as part of the public hearing, it'll be part of it.
All right,
Anybody
that's
else
what I
do?
thought.
That's what I would recommend.
We will go ahead and open up the public hearing for Ms. Egbert's comments and additional testimony.
All right. So this is actually 2 pieces to this application. One is administrative, and I have authority under your code to do that without your involvement. So that's the simple part. It's a change of trade name from what used to be the Ancient Mariner to Ruffiano's Hell's Kitchen Pizza. I will take that action only after the rest of this is concluded, which that is a change of location. So to put it into simple terms, the applicant, through his LLC, held the license that was the Ancient Mariner. The location of the Ancient Mariner now holds a completely separate and new license in that location. The underlying license for Ruffiano's LLC is now being requested to change locations to what is the Hell's Kitchen Pizza location. So the change of location requires a needs and desires hearing. There's 2 prongs to needs and desires. It has to be needed by your neighborhood, which is been predefined as 100 feet radius around the location. The desire is the fact that the inhabitants of those the adult inhabitants of that neighborhood desire to have the liquor license that's being requested. So the applicant will be presenting evidence on those 2 things. What I would like to offer is that the property has been posted with the big sign. I didn't bring it in, but I have it available in my office next door if anyone would like it. It was posted on, for my notes for the dates. Posted on August 26th, and the legal notice in the newspaper published on August 29th. The legal standard is 10 days prior to tonight, so that was well in advance, and it meets those timelines. Just reminding you that the hearing is a quasi-judicial proceeding, meaning that you, as the licensing authority, should base your decision based on the evidence that comes to you at the hearing.
Wonderful.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you. From, is that correct? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, Nelson Rufron.
Great. Would you like to come on up and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Nelson Rufron, and I'm the owner of Rufrano's Hell's Kitchen Pizza. And September 10th would make 9 years that I've been there. And I also owned the Ancient Mariner for 2 years. And then, like she said, like Judy said, I don't own that anymore, but I would like to transfer the license to Hell's Kitchen. And I'm here today just to explain and let you guys know why I feel it should be transferred, the needs and the desires, of course. First of all, let me just tell you a little bit about myself and how familiar I am with alcohol and liquor. I currently have 3 liquor licenses, which includes the one that I'm trying to transfer. I have one in Colorado Springs, at Shine Mountain Boulevard in the Target Shopping Center. I've had that for 4 years, and I also have one in Security, and that's going on 2 years. However, that one hasn't been opened yet, but I had bought the license and went through the hearing and everything, and they granted me the license over a year ago. So hopefully we're gonna be open soon, because I'm trying to get open. But some of the needs that I feel of having a liquor license at Rufrano's. First of all, when I owned Ancient Mariner, so many customers would come in and they asked for beer with the pizza. They kind of go together like, salt and pepper. So once we told them we didn't have it here, but we did have it at the Ancient Mariner, where we did also serve pizza, they would go there. And once we started serving pizza there, I noticed an increase in business. So of course, with an increase in business, there's an increase in revenue. So that's one need, I think, that we have for Manitou to have a liquor license at Rufrano's, is the fact that it's gonna, develop more revenue for the city through sales tax. And it's also gonna help business at Rufrano's and bring people in. And the reason I say that is because I have a lot of people that come to the Manitou store because my other store has beer, and they come here to get pizza and beer, and I don't have it. So I think it's a need that also can be included in the desires. So another need, I think, not just for Manitou, but for myself and to bring people to Manitou, is the consistency of all the stores having the beer, because they don't want to go to a store. It's like buying a Big Mac in another state. You want it to be exactly the same. You come to Hell's Kitchen, you want it to be the same experience in Manitou that you get in Colorado Springs. So I don't want to lose the revenue or the business in Hell's Kitchen here in Manitou because of that. Excuse me. And as far as the desires go, I mean, there's just so many customers come in wanting beer. And for 9 years, I've had to turn people away. And for the 2 years that I did have the Mariner, I mean, it was helpful that they were able to go there and get it. So I definitely saw an increase of people wanting to go to Ancient Mariner. So when I did have alcohol and beer there, I also have a petition that I acquired today. I just went to some of the businesses and some of the residents within a 100-yard radius, and had some signatures. So I also have that I would like to present if you guys are interested in seeing that.
Sure.
So do you have that?
Thank you.
Yep.
So this is what I just been handed as a petition of support and need. We, the undersigned, being residents, inhabitants, and/or owners or managers of businesses located in the city of Manitou Springs, and being over 21 years of age, hereby petition, represent, and certify to the City Council of the city of Manitou Springs as follows. And it has Nelson's name, doing business as Ancient Mariner / Rufrano's Hell's Kitchen Pizza, has applied for a change of location of a liquor license premise, changing the location to 9 Buxton in Manitou Springs. The undersigned are familiar with said location and believe that the neighborhood has reasonable requirements for such a license that will be met by the granting of said. Now therefore the undersigned endorse the application of Nelson Rufrano and petition, desire, and request that a change of location be granted. Signed, and then there are 12 signatures. Yes, I'm in favor of granting to change the location, I'll send it this way and then.
You
and send it
summarize
the
the
other way.
addresses and yeses and noes.
Well, there's all yeses, there are no nos, and primarily they are business owners on Ruxton. There's a resident on Cave, there's a business on Manager Avenue, a resident on Ruxton, another resident on Manager Avenue, 354. General manager on Manager Avenue, a manager on Manager Avenue, another manager, a resident on Manager Avenue, an owner on Manager Avenue, and an owner on Manager Avenue. And I'll pass that around. Anything else?
You know, just from a personal standpoint, like I said, I've been there for 9 years, and for 9 years people have been asking for beer on a regular basis. And with that location, I know the liquor license that I'm transferring is a full liquor license, but that's not my intent. My intent is to serve beer only there. And so it won't be like a full-blown bar, where people are actually coming in and getting drunk. However, in my other locations, I do have televisions to watch games and beer, so I just would like to keep it consistent and also maintain the revenue for Manitou and myself.
Okay, great. Any questions for Mr. McCracken? Yes, ma'am.
So, it's probably outside the purview of our piece of this, but what's the trade name of the pizza store now?
The trade name is Rufrano's Hell's Kitchen Pizza. So basically that has been in existence. So I'm transferring the license, is what I'm trying to do. Is transfer the license to the business. Because I did pay a lot for that license, and I had the license for 2 years, and I went through the whole process to get the license, and I paid a lot of money for it. So I hated to just let it go.
Sure.
And I wanted to, and I had a specific need at Hell's Kitchen, so it was something that I intended to do anyway. So this was just a way to be able to do it without having to go through the whole regular process. I could just transfer the license and get it.
Did that answer your question?
No, not so much.
I may be able to answer that for you.
Please.
Your question was, what the name is now and what it's being changed to.
Right.
So it's currently the Ancient Mariner.
Well, he has a trade name. He has 2 trade names. He's got Ancient Manor, and he also has Rufrano's Hell's Kitchen Pizza.
Yes.
Already in existence. And so the change is on the liquor license. He wants to change the trade name of the liquor license to an existing trade name.
Yes.
And then he wants to change the location from one that essentially doesn't exist anymore and has been for over 6 months to his location at 9 Ruxton Avenue. This is all on the liquor license.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Okay, I'd like to, okay.
And so, and all of that's just fine.
It is.
Yeah, liquor licenses don't,
Okay.
they generally don't just terminate, it's basically still in effect until it's actually terminated.
I just find
Yeah, and
it interesting that, just find it an interesting way of going about doing this, that's all. I just wanna be clear in how it's all working in my own mind, because I find it to be, a strange process to say the least.
Liquor can be a strange process.
There's no doubt about that.
well, I would like to say a couple of things in regard to your concerns. First of all, the Ancient Mariner was ran under Rufrano's LLC, as is Rufrano's Hell's Kitchen Pizza, so it's one entity. And then also, I lost my train of thought. So it was under the umbrella, first of all, and I did speak to an attorney, and he counseled me that this would be okay to do before I actually went ahead and did it. And also, what I'd like to say is, I started this process when I still had, or just shortly after. So I think I gave up the Ancient Mariner at the beginning of June, and that's when I started the process. Unfortunately, there were some issues that had happened with people resigning or whatever the case may be, which delayed the process. So otherwise, this hearing would have went on like probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, I'm fine, it's just, I wanted to be clear in my mind.
Okay,
Anything else?
sure.
Also, I'm fine.
Any other questions?
A little bit similar to Councilman Moore's question.
Sure.
And just to say high level, I definitely, personally support this change and your justification. I was curious as to why it was a transfer, and you explained that, because the rigmarole going through applying for a new license. But the subtle question I'm left with, and again, this is probably something that our city clerk can confirm, take a concern away that I have, is that as we have seen other liquor licenses come through, it was always a very important point that all people within this 100 yards be surveyed and chits come back, yes or no, and signed. And so I'm a little curious on this petition, which sounds kind of like that process, but it's really not that process. It sounds like it was a lucky strike extra that you're volunteering, but you didn't need to do. That's where I'm kind of caught. Why this document? Does it carry any weight truly?
I can address that also.
Thank you.
So there's no requirement to do any sort of petition or survey at all. It's a customary practice, and it's, people like to do it because it's an easy way to show a great deal of volume of opinion in a single document. So it's chosen as a mechanism quite often. There's no state law, you don't have anything in your code that requires it specifically to happen. But the obligation is that the applicant prove both needs and desires. And that standard of proof is the same in tonight's hearing as it is for a brand new license. So you're seeing it as sort of a, there's a petition here, but maybe it wasn't seen as much importance tonight. It carries the same importance as a hearing for a new license. It's just not required for either one.
Appreciate that clarification. Thank you. Don?
Any other questions? Ms. Parker, do you have anything to weigh in?
No, I think a perfect explanation of the desires test, and the Supreme Court has basically said specifically that a survey is not required, and you can take any evidence you believe is reasonable and relevant to that issue.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
All right. Actually, that was addressed here. Any other questions from council? All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody from the audience? You may take a seat. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak concerning this issue? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to come on up and introduce yourself? If you could introduce and also give your address, please.
Sure, my name is Melody Doherty, and I live at 106 Roxton Avenue, so I'm half a block up from Rufrano's. And I never received a petition to sign, because I would have signed it. And I've lived where I live for 12 years, and I can just say that I have seen Rufrano, he brings in a lot of business, and there's a lot of families that go there, they love the pizza. The pizza's really good. I think it would just be great for the neighborhood. It's just a really fun event to go to there. So I just want to put my 2 cents in for him that I would vote for, because I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. And you didn't mention they have the best pizza in town, did you?
They have the best pizza in town.
I was teasing.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else from the audience wishing to comment?
I have one other procedural thing to point out.
Yes.
I neglected to mention that in your packet you also have my preliminary findings of fact. Those are a sort of recitation of all the reasons it's eligible to proceed. And I just wanted to make note of that for the hearing record as well.
Okay. All right. Anything else? If not, the hearing is closed. Council, what's your pleasure? If someone's going to make a motion, you do need to consider a specific motion of findings of fact addressing the issues of needs and desires of the neighborhood.
council approve, the application to change the location for Rufranos LLC, DBA Hell's Kitchen Pizza, based on our hearing, determining the needs and desires for the proposed change of location.
Mr. Parker?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that you find that the needs and desires of the neighborhood have been met from the evidence you received.
And those needs and desires have been met.
Thank you.
All right, that's good clarification. We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Great. Thank you very much. We apologize about the delay, apparently it sounds like it took a little bit longer than it might have otherwise, but thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, we will now adjourn the meeting of the Liquor License Authority and resume the regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council. Anybody want to take a break?
Sure. You know, Mayor?
Well, we're going to adjourn the meeting of the Liquor License Authority and resume. Is that okay? Yeah. And resume, but in the meantime, we'll take a short break.
He's not asking me.
I'm like, did my best.
Yes, sir.
My expectation is not to speak the question on
because we really need I did
Okay, we're going to get you out of here by.
I know they like to give people a
I'm not saying. What'd you say?
11:42.
I hope so. If you win, we're in trouble.
I actually was ready to lose because I had discussed my. I can't keep up like the high level. That would thoroughly,
No, usually yes is over with.
Are you a big believer in taking the pain medications they give you, or do you just kind of let it go and you figure out your own way? Pretty much.
No, but I will.
Well, I'm glad you got through it. That's so, I mean, it's amazing. How many days has it been now? How many days has it been? Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Oh, so
6 days.
really?
I'm impressed.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Can I get you some water or anything? I'm sure you can fix it a lot, right?
No.
Yeah.
They've got like,
It was Monday morning,
actually. They were kind of like, we had a place in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and I was gonna bring back some chocolates for city council. And see, I'm gonna bring their caramels, their caramels are amazing. So I'll bring those in. If I make it back in time for that Tuesday, the 8th, I'll be here for that one. If we're not, it'll be the following week.
Life is, if you want some, it is, I responded yesterday, unlike you, we are passionate about what we do, and so effectively.
Did you find out yet?
I'm looking for my response to these are delicious.
Aren't they amazing?
I know too. Thank you for your comments on marijuana. Since I'm raising
These are delicious. I have $2 for a whole bag, and I put it away. They're trying to Sir, would you like chocolate?
It's very nice of you, no thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate it though. Trying to.
I'm saving myself.
I would not want to be
You didn't tell me that was gonna happen. You didn't tell me that was gonna happen. Are you doing okay? Good. Chocolate makes it better. You want the last piece? Last piece, chocolate? But then,
This so far, Sarah, I found
credit cards, yeah, you take the loss, nobody will do it because they're under the financial transaction caveat. So American Express is not having credit card charges.
If Jeff doesn't like to go back tonight.
I can't go back to work yet.
So I apologize, I wrote. Is that what I do? The other thing.
Yeah, other things we get to as well.
Not a little long.
So,
I think I'd like to start doing about a year after she was on retired. So what's that?
Okay.
We're building some of that.
And that's that's why
So it looks like we're gonna do a pool this weekend?
But it was, and you did talk about co-location requirement. Now, I did ask him, and I don't know if it's about customer friendly process. So I'm still waiting to. But the other part of it, I'm interested what's in that presentation.
Well, no, it starts at 2 and it just goes to police officers. That'll be basic on everything. I haven't got that broke down because I just wasn't sure what was on the laws charges.
I need to get this at the same time. I have a real, yeah. Okay, we will reconvene and, call item J1, second reading and final action on ordinance number 1619. An ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, approving a cable franchise agreement between the city and Comcast of Colorado / Pennsylvania / West Virginia LLC to operate a cable system in the city pursuant to the terms of such cable franchise agreement. Mr. Parker, is there anything that you'd like to add on second reading?
Well, I don't have anything extra to add other than what we discussed at the last meeting. It is a public hearing, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I know the representative from Comcast, Nick Jimenez, is here as well. If you have any questions or if Nick has anything he wants to say, I think you covered most of it in the last meeting.
All right. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Mr. Jimenez, is there anything you'd like to add? You did inform me earlier that apparently the payments, the franchise fee payments are being made or had been made to the city, and maybe you could just confirm that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's the only point worth making is that indeed Comcast has continued to meet its franchise obligations despite the contract going to a month-to-month upon its expiration of its term. So I did share information with Denise about The timing and amount of such payments, we're gonna verify and make sure moving forward, we're gonna add her and others to an email notification so that the city's aware of payments as they're coming in.
Wonderful, very much appreciate that. All right, does anybody in the audience wish to speak on this topic? If not, we're going to close the public hearing. Council, entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 1619, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, approving a cable franchise agreement between the city and Comcast of Colorado, Pennsylvania, West Virginia LLC to operate a cable system in the city pursuant to the terms of such cable franchise agreement.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Wonderful, Mr. Jimenez, thank you very much for your patience. 18 months, 2 years, whatever. Long patience for us to get this done. Very much appreciate it. Council correspondence. Yes, I've got that.
Next Mayor Pro Tem and I attended a meeting with Councilor Joe Gabler and assorted staff in Colorado Springs on Friday. And a general consensus was that it went very well. There were several action items, but one of the action items is that we're going to be meeting, staff will be meeting more often, and perhaps getting the group back together. My own impression is that I thought the meeting went swimmingly. It got everybody in the same room that really has a stake, and it got us talking again, which hasn't happened in a while. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to move the management plan forward and perhaps tweak it and look at the IGA and come to some really good conclusions on all of that. Anything else on that topic? And on any other topic.
I have two things. First off, it was brought to my attention, and it's been brought to our attention before, of counselors taking breaks with their mics on. And it was transported off into our little technology there during the break. And I have no idea what was said. All I know is that I was informed of that. And on that
That's a great reminder, by the way.
it is a great reminder, and this is another reminder on the same line is that there was I was making some statements a couple weeks ago about the environment and such, and not everybody always agrees with me, and I know that. And the next day, this person came up to me and said, I really agree with everything you said, you're really right on. But you should have seen the faces of all the other counselors while you were talking. And I was really stunned, because that also goes out on that video. So if you want to roll your eyes, or you want to make faces, you should maybe do it like this, so that people don't, it's a bad reflection on us as a whole.
Very good observation.
And that's really all I have.
Okay. Councilman Smith?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring something back from my work. There's gonna be a meeting, and people were wanting to know Colorado Springs and Colorado Springs Utilities and the City of Colorado Springs. We're gonna have a meeting on Thursday night at 5:30 to 7 at the Mesa Conservation Center. And basically what it's gonna do is gonna talk about all the projects that we've got starting, and basically starting September, and they're going into fall of 2021, between the city on Garden of the Gods, 30th, going up past going into the Garden of the Gods. We're going to be building a roundabout. We're going to be doing some water main replacements all the way from Fillmore to Walnut, which will go down past, be going south, clear to Walnut across Uinta. We're going to be doing some going to to the, north from Fillmore, some water main replacement, and then the city's gonna be doing curb and gutter, storm drainage, and a lot of work being done out down on 30th. So, pretty much, and then there's gas main improvements that are going on Fillmore, Fontmore, so for the next 2 years, it's gonna be pretty busy over there, so, but they, since it's close to Manitou, they wanted me to bring it up, and you guys are invited if you choose, you wanna come over and see what's gonna happen on Thursday. It'll be this Thursday at 5:30 at the conservation. And, but there's a lot of things happening, and we're trying to, it's kind of a joint venture between us, the city, everybody. We're trying to make this all happen and get it done.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilman Todd?
Yeah, I have a couple of items. I think most of them are quick. Regarding our earlier discussion this evening about the marijuana laws changing the state level, as I recall, there was kind of a trilogy of changes at the state level, and I think we as a council have yet to discuss clubs, which are part of recent legislation, and I'm not clear myself on consumption or a definition of consumption. I understood the third issue. Just to say, those are open items that I believe, particularly the club one, we probably want to have a work session on that.
Councilman Dodd, I'm assuming you weren't here for the discussion we did have about all three of those issues.
Okay.
And it was my recollection that council was not, that we have a prohibition on the other two, clubs and,
It's just clubs, and
Just clubs.
and then there's the delivery that's automatic. And then you had asked me to bring the city ordinances in compliance, or consistent with state law on public consumption, and I'm working on that.
right. And so I think, if I remember correctly, the majority of council only wanted to take up the issue of home consumption. That we were comfortable, and correct me if I'm misstated, comfortable with the prohibition on, clubs or, as it is at the moment.
Yeah,
So,
that's my
that's
understanding.
different than, I'm assuming you were not here, but I don't know that for sure. But that was the conversation we had.
No, I see that that's the case, yeah.
Right. Thank you for bringing that
That
up.
was a quick one. The next one I think is almost equally as quick. And Jeff, this is a question for you. Regarding the mock proposal, which you've been through the various generations of that, and so we currently have a proposal that will be on the ballot. Assuming voters approve that, what I'd like clarification on is if any aspect of that ordinance subsequent councils would care to amend, what process has to be gone through to do that?
So you basically put on your own ballot question about major, it's an issue, it's a Tabor issue.
Correct.
And then you're going to, once that, if that is approved, then you would basically adopt your own ordinance, implementing that in the city's sales tax code, or the city's tax code. So, you can adjust the ordinance to reflect the actual ballot measure language, but your charter has a provision in there that basically says that, I believe it's initiated and referred measures, require another vote to overturn. I actually wanna think about how that would work, because your ballot question is really just a Tabor issue that you presented. So it may not, you may be able to change it as you want, but I wanna take a look at your charter language more carefully and get a better answer. But so if a citizen group initiates an ordinance, for example, the city council can't vary, it has to be changed via another election, basically. But when you initiate your own Tabor question, then you may have some more flexibility. I want to just take a look at your code and make sure I'm not missing that.
Presumably, it's really not the ordinance issue, it would be the Tabor issue.
Right.
That was required
Right.
election or not election.
Right. And then so the question is, can a city council actually change a voted upon Tabor issue that you initiated? And I just want to look at that, your charter.
Right.
If you could get back with us, that'd be great. Councilman Todd,
Perfect,
anything else?
thank you. And then, two lightly topics. One is the city's Creek Week program will be the same day we have our budget retreat. So no council members will be involved with that. And it's just an open question for council. Would we want to consider as a group forming a team and kind of registering a team and picking not a lot of hours, but kind of just a show of unity of maybe 3 hours and just identify a project that we might choose to do on another day.
On another day, not on the 5th.
Correct, because that's our budget retreat. It's just a thought. We can consider that next week if people care to consider it. And then the last item I have is regarding ADA. As we all know, the Cannon Tree project was funded by and precipitated by the desire to have ADA egress and so forth on Cannon Avenue, and the focus was on the sidewalk. But with those funds, we never did address the ADA step up that you have at the post office coming across and so forth, which raises in my mind how quickly is the city going to be moving on visible ADA crosswalk improvements. And the reason why it's on my mind is I think we all as residents are highly aware of what Colorado Springs is doing, and we see it now on various secondary roads coming into our own town. And it just strikes me that we may not want to be any further behind the ball than we currently are.
Okay.
And this may be a budget item that we may want to look for to have funding and have something tangible in our mind for 2020.
We did, I'm looking and I don't have it right here available. We did have some money in the budget for the ADA, and I did get an update from John this week, and I'm sorry I don't have it right here to pull up.
Perfect.
But I can send it to you on the projects that he's working on, and ADA was one of them. I just don't have that readily available where he is, but I'll send it.
That's great, it's got that in the scope now.
Yeah, so he
Great.
does, it was minimal, I think there was 40,000 if I remember correctly, that was budgeted for ADA this year. And I'll give you an update on that.
Now highlight the post office entrance to the post office.
I will give you an update of exactly what those items were, that they were looking at, and where, I don't have that, I thought I had it right here, but I don't, I apologize.
Thanks. Anything else, Councilman Todd?
Nope.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
I met with Andy Wells, who I guess has been to council when I wasn't here. Went over and looked at his issue on Clarksley. He had a laundry list of all of his neighbors with all of the concerns. I explained to him that the city was now jetting that out, and it would, that we have a capital improvement plan for sewer and so on, but he does have a huge problem up there. So I know you have it on your sites, but he's gonna continue to push on that, understandably.
Roy and Rich Bernard also met with him. It is in our capital improvement next year.
Great.
It is in the
Perfect.
budget.
Perfect.
So we will be presenting that in the budget.
Great. Okay, good news.
All right, I just had a couple things. One, wanted to confirm that everybody's going to be available tomorrow at 3:30 to get ready for our 4 o'clock interviews. So we'll be doing a 4 o'clock interview and a 5 o'clock interview. At this point, we are not pursuing another candidate. We did have a third who finally got back to us today. But we're going to hold off, I think, until tomorrow, see what happens, and then we may be able to schedule that thereafter. And so we'll make that decision tomorrow. So everybody okay with 3:30? Okay.
Are we meeting afterwards? I had down a possible executive session.
Yes, we are.
So it'll go on beyond that.
It could, if we want to make a
And
decision.
you will be moving into Memorial Hall for that executive session to allow planning commission to be able to serve.
Right, unless we get it done before 6:30.
Before 6:30, there you go.
Which we might. All right, and also wanted to announce, the fire department has an open house on Saturday at 9 o'clock, and at 10:30 they will be doing a pushback ceremony of the new, fire trucks. If you'd like to join them for that. Already mentioned about the budget retreat on October 5th, and that starts at what time?
9 o'clock, I believe we said.
Okay, and that is offsite, I believe, at the Cliff House.
Cliff House, yes.
And the last thing I had was, well, actually, two more things. One, there is a note from, Ralph. I couldn't read his handwriting. Ralph Mayer wrote us a note. I will pass that along, thanking us for his interview. I will pass that. And then the last thing I had was, a suggestion I've been asked about, videotaping other boards and commissions. And I know there's been some discussion about planning commission being, not videotaped, but, streaming, and I wonder if we're any further along on that. We have the chairman of the planning commission and the planning director, and I'm wondering if you might just fill us in where we are on streaming any other boards and commissions.
I guess I'm waiting for direction to do that. There was some concern that we weren't quite there yet, and the, previous directors had wanted to wait until we had that system set up and ready to go before we moved into planning commission and HBC, so we have not done.
So my guess is we are set up and ready to go. I don't think there's anything that we're waiting for from a technology standpoint, once we've got the microphones and so forth, so if there's any other reason why we wouldn't do it, we can do it. It'd be nice for people to be able to observe and so forth, so. Anybody on council see any reason why we would not move forward with that?
We had a policy question outstanding with our prior city clerk regarding what was to be our records retention policy on these recordings, because they're owned by YouTube, they're not owned by the city, therefore we do not control how long they're out there, although we do have a records retention policy that is not indefinite. So those have not been reconciled.
So my opinion on that is, you're gonna define what is your official recording record. We have two independent systems going. We have an audio recording going separate from the live stream. In my opinion, that audio recording is our official recorded record. We retain that for 6 months. Once that's on YouTube, we have no control. You're exactly right. There's certainly no harm in that recording, either audio or video, existing longer than the 6 months. But the question becomes, how do we manage that internally? And so if we're managing just the audio, that's very easy. If we're managing the video, then we need a way to bring it back from YouTube in-house so that we can do that.
It's my understanding that you could download it.
You can.
And we download it on our website.
It's actually a link.
I know that, but we could.
You could.
Download it on our website.
You could.
And then it's ours.
But then you're destroying it after 6 months, so
Well, maybe
what's
yes,
the
maybe
point?
no. You don't have to destroy it.
You don't have to.
But you can capture control over it if we download it and put it on our website.
You
which
can
I
control
assume
what
we
you download. You can't control what YouTube does.
No, I understand. Once we download it, then isn't it in our control?
Yeah.
And we would decide what to do?
No.
Yes.
No?
It's on the web. It's on the web.
I know it's on the web. My question is, can we download the actual video?
And then we basically have our own copy of it.
Correct.
And then whatever happens to the YouTube version or whatever anybody else downloads, not in our control.
Right.
And then we decide how we wanna manage that. It's totally fine. It's part of your policy.
But I'm hearing maybe we can't do that.
I think you can.
What's the point?
Right.
If we wanted to do it, I'm saying we can. I'm not saying there is a point.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some technical, term in the YouTube contract about how you handle YouTube videos, but I think generally it's probably fine for you to hang on to your own creative content as well.
So I don't know if that answers your question. We probably need to just move forward then with the next question is, do we want to do that? And if so, how long do we want to retain it and in what format? I think it's the question.
And what we discussed at that time, we discussed this was Colorado Springs has a very defined process, and their video recordings are captive and owned by the city and controlled by the city. So you could do that through a private firm, just like we're getting it, no charge through YouTube. And I think that's where the prior city clerk was gonna go with this council request. I don't remember that.
I do think you need to step back and say, what are we trying to accomplish? There are multiple vendors out there who offer that service of creating it for us, ourselves. Most of them actually host it on their web server, so it doesn't take our resources, so it makes it simple. They're not cheap, so there's that. But, you know, are you seeing something that we're not getting right now?
Right, so maybe we could take this conversation offline. It is a topic that we could have a full conversation about, perhaps broader than just during council correspondence. So maybe we can figure out how to have that. And Councilman Todd, maybe you could connect with Ms. Egbert and figure out if you have a plan of what you think might be done or should be done. We can see what might be done. Does that work?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do so,
Okay.
of course. But I think that then postpones the question on the planning commission, because until we really have a video policy.
I disagree.
Okay.
We have the ability to get out to our community right now what's going on. Whether they can see it 6 months or 9 months or 12 months down the road, that's a different question. The question now is, do we want our community to be able to observe what's going on? That's the question that I have raised.
Alan Delwich, I have lots of inquiries about this. A lot of people would like to just be able to see the meeting and not have to come and sit here. And I think it would be great. I'm all in favor of it. And I don't think anybody wants to go back a year or 5 years unless they're really, got really serious insomnia. I don't see why anyone would do that. But it's just like someone can't be here, they really like to watch a particular conversation that happens, and it'd be great. And I don't think, I'm not concerned about whether it's on YouTube or not. I think that's immaterial.
So given the conversation we just had, does anybody have an objection to not moving forward with having the planning commission and or other boards and commissions live streamed?
I don't have an objection to live streaming that, and I know we've got a lot of emails requesting it. But what you're saying is there's an audio recording of a planning commission or minutes from the meeting. So if I needed to go back, I would be able to go back and find that, correct?
Yep.
Is it just the minutes, or is the audio preserved for something that happened 5 or 8 years ago?
Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. We should be destroying those audio recordings after 6 months.
So
Minutes are permanent.
the minutes are a record of what happened in that meeting. Yeah. I don't know, I think sometimes, especially with planning things, there are nuances, or there are things that the minutes may not capture that might be important. I've certainly experienced some of that in my neighborhood. Sometimes people agree with things in planning meetings and they have a little amnesia. So, there's definitely amnesia. So I think, I don't know, I may not understand Councilman Tom's request, but since we live in an age of video, I'm not sure why we wouldn't be preserving this.
There is a trade-off to having just an unlimited amount of records when it comes to core requests and revisiting things. It can be an epic burden.
Okay.
And that's the reason why you retain records for a certain period of time, because generally they begin to lose their value as time goes on. And if you retain too many records, it's already impossible almost not to give it emails and all that. We could have requests for documents that go back for years and years, and you retain those records, you're really putting a burden on the city clerk's office to review all those. But there's the occasion when, I wish I had that video. It's a balance. But today, I think I've generally had more issues with retaining too many records that don't need to be retained versus the important ones that do. And you can always look at your policy. Your retention policy is basically the standard municipal retention policy a lot of governments have adopted, or cities and towns. So it's not an unusual policy. You can always adjust if you think your unique needs demand to. But I, as a lawyer, I sometimes think it's helpful. You want to retain a good record, but too many documents can be a problem over time.
Thanks for
Yeah.
So the channel is Manitou Springs live stream. So who owns the channel? Because if we own a channel, we can delete our own videos because we own the content. So we just need to find out who owns Manitou Springs live stream on YouTube, which is where all these go. And then Councilman Todd's issues can be resolved because if we own it, then we own the video, we can delete our region.
I don't know the answer. So it sounds like that's gonna be looked into. I didn't mean to raise the whole question, but it was a good discussion. So it sounds like we can move forward as soon as practical to start live streaming that, get that out on our website, that we are now doing that, let people know. It doesn't do us any good to do it. Nobody knows we're doing it, so that would be great to get that moved out. All right, city administrator report.
First, I will turn it over to Roy. I do wanna let you guys know that I've asked Roy to go over to Public Works. He's over there pretty much full-time now, as we're managing, and, John is still working kind of 30 hours a week, and I just thought that we needed to put some more focus in that area. So Roy is over there. I'll let him give a couple of updates on that, and then I have some more things to do.
I visited with Stephen Smith from Seven Narrows Road today. We're getting close to getting ready to pave that. The hydrant is something we're still working on. There's a hydrant that was put on someone's private property. So we're looking at if we have to move that to the Seven Narrows Road where the resident there, so he'd be happy to have the hydrant over there. Or if we can just convince the gentleman at 6 Narrows Road if he'll accept the hydrant there for safety reasons for the whole block there. So we're real close to getting that moving along here in the next few weeks and having that project done for the year. Shriver Park Bridge, we have a contract from Terra Builders. That is gonna be in the consent calendar in 2 weeks, and we'll move forward in replacing that bridge finally after 6 years.
Do you know the cost of
About $178,000 with the bridge, so it's under, hopefully nothing goes wrong, but it's easy as pull out, put in, and we'll get that thing going. We are working with Cord, and we have renovation plans for Public Works. They gave us the diagrams and what they're looking at for Public Works building, and they're working on the City Hall still, so we're still moving along with that. The maps, I'm trying to learn a lot about the maps project with John Merritt, and we're hoping to present something to council on the maps and where we're at. One of the issues is parking. Some of that may be ADA issues because they need more space, so it may take parking, but we're trying to figure that out if that's been measured correctly for them. And then the Williams Canyon and Maintenance Manual, BH&I is working on finishing that maintenance manual so we can present it to council and see if you approve of the manual and then go over anything with Williams Canyon itself. That is it.
So if I could add something on Williams Canyon, I had a recent discussion with Dave Watt, CDOT, to ask if they're any further. They were supposed to get with DHI and have a conversation about that drain pipe, and Mr. Watt assured me he would have something, and there's nothing forthcoming. So maybe you could follow up and see what is his plan. He talked about a variety of things, but we have nothing in writing, certainly no deadlines or dates that he's thinking about that, but that was kind of part of that.
Is that the drain on 24?
You said that, I think your guys are working on it.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be great to pin them down and find out what they will or will not be willing to do. Anything else?
That's all I have.
One of the things that they are also working on is policies and procedures. That's the one thing that we are finding in that area is that there's really no policies and procedures and documentation of how to do things and how many people go out on calls and safety and those things. So that is another thing that Roy will be taking on along with our SRSA department, and we'll try to get those done. They're going to let me know a time frame in the next couple of days when those will be completed. So we're working on that also. The air quality over there, we should be getting those results from SRSA, hopefully either the end of this week or the beginning of next week in that building, and we'll be able to report out on those as soon as we get them. Crystal Park, they did have their meeting, and John attended. I did speak with Karen, and she was very appreciative and just spoke great positive things about John and what he was able to contribute to that meeting. So they attended. Parking, we're still working that issue, so I just want you to know we're working it. It's not We haven't forgotten about it, we just gotta get through a couple of things, and then we're gonna move that up, so we're working on that. Budget, as you know, we're continuing to do that, get ready for your guys' budget, workshop. It does start at 8:30 for council to be there at 8:30, and then it will be open up to the public for a public meeting starting at 9. So council there at 8:30, and I believe have a few snacks and get ready and get started for the day. So I'm looking to do that. We did complete some electric upgrades on this building this weekend. We were without electricity for about 10 hours. They did some upgrades, which was much needed, so we were able to get that completed. Continue to meet with boards and committees regarding budgets and looking at all of those and discussing their budget requests for next year. So I've met with almost all of them or their representative accordingly, so we're doing that. Thursday, as I mentioned, I'll be at the Capitol and I'll be presenting on the to the Wildfire Matters Review Committee. So I'll be doing that on Thursday. The handbook and the acknowledgement, we're almost at 100% compliance. We have a couple more employees that need to get that in from there. And then we are continuing our conversation with CSU and the rate case and what they're wanting to do. And I had Ann Nichols look at their rate case in depth. She had some very valid questions, and we talked about those briefly today. So we are going to schedule another meeting not next week, but the following week, and be bringing several of their people on staff, from their staff, to explain more details about the case that they're presenting. So we continue to work that. The ADA, we had $90,000 in the budget. We have not been able to work on any of those, so we are planning to roll that. It will be in our budget next year. We'll talk about rolling it and the exact projects that we will be working on. So I did find that from John. I believe that, and then we were able to go to the fire department whenever they celebrated the fire or chief for the day, which has been happening for 32 years, I believe. And the 5th grader gets to be the chief, and he went up to Chief Forster and told him to drop and give him a 10, which was great. He did it.
I so wish we'd taken it.
Yes, it was a great thing, but it was great to celebrate with the kids and just be there and lunch with them.
All right, thank you.
Just two questions, and thank you for that great laundry list. When you said parking, working on parking, is that in reference to the contract?
We are working on that. We're finishing up. We put it out for an evaluation of some opportunities and how we might manage that differently if we choose to. But no, this is about parking at the 600 block and with our employees and how we're going to manage that.
And then the other parking thing, thank you for being here. The other parking thing, which is coming close to being back simmering, is up on the hill, what's the name of the street? Waltham. So Waltham is coming up for a public meeting.
We don't have anything scheduled at this point for Waltham.
Okay, at one point they were given a date and they've been told that's
They haven't been given a date.
Are you talking about the
You may be
Manitou
talking
Avenue?
about the Manitou Avenue RFP. That's tomorrow, that's Thursday night.
Manitou Avenue RFP is Thursday night. And Waltham is on indefinite hold.
Well, not indefinite. They agreed that we had to get through Manitou Avenue first.
Got it, thank you.
All right, anything else? Yes, sir.
Got two things. There are two items in tonight's packet that didn't have good language for council to make a motion on. We could approve that. That would be super helpful.
Thank you.
For us up here.
What are you looking at specifically that'll help me?
Sure. The police chief was one, and the other one was the liquor, actually.
In what way? What would have helped you?
What would have helped me is on some of these, we used to have a thing that said, recommend approval and language to speak for the motion.
Okay.
Because the liquor one needed extra stuff, which is hard to do on the fly when we don't know what people want.
Yeah.
And the police chief was the same thing, basically. We wanted extra stuff, or somebody wanted extra stuff. It's not there. It's kind of hard to do it on the fly. It's no fun.
That's been one of my goals in what I'm working on, and as I'm looking at tonight's agenda, in hindsight, it just had for your liquor, and change of location. It did not say needs and desires hearing for change of location. So those are the things that I'm trying to be aware of as I'm moving forward, so I can be more clear, and that's really good feedback for me.
Ken, thanks. Did you have a security question? Is it okay to bring that up in our executive session?
There's this matter for security, I believe, on the agenda. Is it related to that?
No, because there wasn't anything in the packet regarding what that's about, so it's hard to say. But it's definitely a security question. I would not normally, I would not, working for a security employer, want that question out.
Yeah, so that is definitely a topic you can have in executive session. So we have one listed for security. I believe it'll likely relate. We can have that discussion in there. For some reason, it's totally unrelated. I'd generally like to have another executive session scheduled 24 hours in advance if possible. But if it's a pressing matter, we can address that in that executive session.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what it goes.
Anything else? All right, we're then for the motion to enter into an executive session to consider 5 items. There are items concerning city attorney, concerning Barker House water and sewer charges. There's an item concerning.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The executive session rules of the courts usually say you should read the entire provision. So
Okay.
yeah,
I was.
and we can do a vote to go into all if you read all 5 of them.
All right, so would entertain I won't read it, let's include that in the motion. And would entertain a motion concerning our executive session, and if someone wouldn't mind going through those items, which is what I'm hearing Mr. Parker suggest.
Right. So if your council's okay voting on all 5 together, we'll separate them out during the executive session, and I'll do favors of at least reading what the motion should be. If you agree, somebody can make that motion.
All right.
So the first executive session is pursuant to section 5.1C of the Manitou Springs City Charter, to hold a conference with the city attorney concerning Barker House water and sewer charges. Second executive session pursuant to section 5.1C of the Manitou Springs City Charter to discuss 5.1E, to discuss specialized details of security arrangements or investigations. The third executive session is pursuant to section 5.1C of the Manitou Springs City Charter to hold a conference with the city's attorney concerning potential litigation. The fourth executive session is pursuant to section 5.1C of the Manitou Springs City Charter to hold a conference with the city attorney concerning an investigation. The fifth one is an executive session pursuant to 5.1B of the Manitou Springs City Charter to discuss the purchase or sale of property for private purpose.
Is there a motion?
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to enter into an executive session as outlined. 5 executives. Is it 1 executive
It's
session?
5 executive